All right, we're on right now. All right, cool. So here with Carlos Mena Radio Hour. The man from the West Coast came to Miami. Now he's back in Brooklyn, where he's originally from. Here to talk to you about your tribute to Cheo Feliciano. As I mentioned to you, I thought it was very important to do something like that because the older generation, as they start passing, unfortunately, it's just something that I feel sometimes we forget or we kind of like
Right.
they fall by the wayside. Oh yeah, fine, yeah, whatever. But it's really important for us to really look back and see what the influence that these people had. What did Cheo Feliciano mean to you?
I think when he passed away, I just started listening to some of the music, and I came across this interview that he did a couple years ago with a radio station in Spain, and it really gave me a lot of insight into his career and him as a man. So I thought it'd be nice to put some of that mixed in with some of the music, and that's how the tribute came together. And I typically, if I'm going to do a tribute for someone, I'll pick like my favorite songs and put them together. But I thought it was important to include some information about him, just for the same reason you said. People tend to forget who these people were in terms of their influence on what we're doing today. So I was like, okay, this is really interesting stuff.
There's two tracks specifically that Cheo is well, to me, my favorite tracks. One, pretty obvious choices, but I like Ona. He really just envelops that sound. I mean, the song itself, and it feels like there's many songs out there, many salsa songs, but it's like he would be the only person that could say, that's nobody else could sing that song the way he did it.
Right. Well, it also encompasses who he is as a person. You see this black man singing this song. It has significance to it as well.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about Anacaona.
I don't know, when I first, I've been hearing that song for years, and I think it was recently, maybe 6, 7 years, maybe 7 years ago, that I really paid attention to the lyrics and talked about our people. You don't hear songs talking. You don't hear that. Unless you grew up listening to rap music. Where you're talking about social political situations. You don't hear that now, but back in the day, right, with the rap groups back in the day that actually were talking about their situation. That the story that's told in that song, just to me, kind of evoked a kinship to him. Just seeing him as a person of color and understanding the plight of a black person in society.
Like you mentioned, Fania was kind of not, I don't say it was political, but they were very much, they brought up a lot of issues that were going on in the community at the moment. They had a song about Anacaona. What does that mean to us, as Latino people? Because they could have gone a totally different way. They could have just said, let's just do party music, and they did.
Right.
But they also always had that little bit of social commentary.
Well, I think to me the most important thing was seeing people of color and of your ethnicity in positions of power, whether it's leading a band or running a record label or leading a tour or doing things that as when you grow up in certain communities. Now, I grew up in Bushwick in Brooklyn, and for most of us growing up in those kinds of neighborhoods, you didn't really think that there was a way out or that you could accomplish anything, right? You don't see people like you on television. You don't hear people like you on the radio. And then you start seeing these Fania cats popping up everywhere and really blowing up. It's like, okay, yeah, there's an opportunity to be an artist or to do this or to run a label, whatever it was. But it helped open my eyes to more opportunity.
Not only that, now it may not seem a big deal now because you have Romeo Santos, the bachatero, selling out Yankee Stadium. But when Fania said, you know what, we're going to play at Yankee Stadium, that was a big power move.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
What the hell? Who these Puerto Rican cats
and
Dominican cats? And I forget that Junior Pacheco is Dominican.
Right.
Said, you know what, we're going to do this. They pretty much broke the rules on everything. They say, well, this is how we're going to do it. We run the city. They were running things for a while. The 70s was their era. You got Louis. Some of you may not know, but Louis' uncle was at the law.
Right.
I worked with Louis on his Fania CD where he paid tribute to his uncle. I was the one that kind of like interviewed, I interviewed Louis, interviewed his mom, his aunt, his sister, and to me, I was like, oh my god, I can't believe I'm working with Fania right now.
That's good.
So it's Fania Ostra's La Cheetah when at the beginning of the song, Yoni Pacheco, somebody says, "Oh, speaking Spanish," because he's talking in English. He's introducing the band in English. And they're like, "What are you talking about? We're talking English. Like, yo, this is how we are. This is like a New Yorican thing. Like, we're from the barrio. This is salsa, but this was born in New York City. And the way that you guys, like you said, you play salsa, you play hip hop, you play everything. That's something that really wasn't around before they really did it. Before it was like, you were into rock or you were into doo-wop, but they were the one that said, you know what? Let's look at this, as a New Yorican, I guess a New Yorican or like a Latino in New York City. Like they were the first guys that really did that.
That brought in different flavors.
And you look at
Joe Cuba and the Brown Brothers and all this other stuff.
And you look at like Boogaloo, which is pretty much. I mean, if you look up the Boogaloo dictionary, what it is really salsa sung in English, which you think, how the hell did this happen? But it works. Not every song was great, but some of the stuff that they did, it was really, really revolutionary. That came a little bit before Fania, but it just speaks to how they were just on that wave of just like they identified Latinos so well at that moment. And if you look at it now, it's the same thing now. The whole bicultural Latino. Oh, I grew up this way. I grew up speaking English. I grew up speaking Spanish at home, but outside I'm speaking English. That's where it really came from. Our Latin thing. I mean, that's what that is really. Because our Latin thing is not just Latin American; it's also North American. So they were really able to encompass that. And the other song, speaking about like the whole New Yorican experience. I mean, is there a more New Yorican song than El Raton? I mean, that song, like swagger, like to the 90th degree. I mean, talk a little bit about that song. And again, it's Cheo.
Yeah. That song is, like you said, it's kind of like the epitome of a New Yorker. That's what you're from New York. That there's a certain thing about being from New York that's a little bit different from being from anywhere else. It's like the expression that he's a cat. That they used to use in the '60s. In this case, you're talking about Raton, but it's that he's that cat. That's that dude. It's kind of that same kind of vibe.
And even like you said, New Yorker outside of New York, you could just spot somebody like, oh, he's from New York. Or the way he speak and everything else. It just really, I mean, it wasn't a boogaloo, but it had. I don't even think it had any English language in it. But it just really captured what was the boogaloo era. The influence of R&B and the Motown sound and the body was just like right there. Like that's a New York song. Like they say, oh, like hip hop is New York songs. Yeah, but you got to put El Raton in there. It's the way that Cheo sang it. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say that there's certain songs like that you can play in any context in a club. Whether you're playing hip hop or house or whatever, you play a song like that, everybody's gonna gravitate towards it because, like you said, it just brings in all the different elements. Whether you're Latino or you're African American or whatever, it just brings all those different vibes into that one song.
Yeah, even non-Latinos, there's something that they get down with. It's like, bro, you cannot like that song. It's just so. Even if you don't understand what he's saying in English, the way he sings it, and Cheo just really killed it there because it's like the swagger he has on that is like, forget about it. You could be from like Russia. You're like, this guy is he's the man, and you can just picture him walking down the street with that. And there's also, and all of a sudden they throw in a rock like solo by George Santana. Like, what was it? How did that even work?
I don't know. Like, first of all, when I first read the liner notes and said Santana, I was like, oh, Carlos is on here. But it's his brother. It's like, oh, okay. So like the whole experience of putting the mixtape together and the tribute was really educational for me. The interview and researching the music and listening to it was refreshing. So I do things like that for fun, and and just to not only just pay tribute, but I get a lot out of it personally and creatively. So it was a good experience.
Let's move on to Casamena, yourself, So tell me a little about yourself. You mentioned you grew up in Brooklyn and you went out to the West Coast.
Yeah, I was in the West Coast for a while.
So you're like Porcho Sanchez from over here. You went out there.
Yeah.
Like tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I was out here, and I went on vacation to California. I fell in love with the weather and moved out there and started a hip hop career out there. Started a group. We had a lot of success. Did some tours with some really big groups, and I produced a lot of records out there for a lot of different artists, and got the chance to work with a couple of big name artists. And I met up with Oshunlade about 8 years ago. Was introduced to him through some radio interview I heard, and I said, I want to meet up with this guy and chat. We had some common interests, and at the time I was working on an Orisha based project, exploring the Bata rhythms with this master percussionist named Michael Spiro, which is a project we're still actually actively working on. So I started reaching out to artists that knew about the tradition and knew about Bata drums, and then I started reaching out beyond that to just artists that I appreciated, and started getting them to work on a project. And one of the artists was Oshunlade, and he reintroduced me to house music. He invited me to the Winter Music Conference. So I went down there. I didn't know what to expect. I thought it was going to be more EDM, techno sounds. But it was all beautiful stuff, and I got drawn into that scene. And I've been, kind of drawn into that scene really for the last 8-9 years. And I started a label with Oshunlade back 7 years ago. 8 years ago, called Ocha Records. I've been running that label for a while, putting out a lot of music from South Africa, where house music is really big. Done some local artists as well.
Now it's called EDM. Before it was called dance music. I think the fact that now it's a bigger thing and like everybody's listening to it, there's no way you can not, I guess, deal with it. Even if you're into hip hop, I mean, you got hip hop artists and R&B artists all doing EDM. Yeah, absolutely. It's on the hip hop stations. They're playing it. Yeah, it's great. But I mean, there's a lot of controversy about these young kids, EDM kids that don't really know how to DJ, laptop DJs, et cetera, versus like somebody who can actually spin, the deeper sound of that. What do you fall on that in that respect? It's a very interesting argument because you have people like Tommy Sunshine coming out saying, it's all music. And then you have like people like, I forget, the guy from Chicago saying, these guys are whack, like they ain't real DJs, whatever. Where do you fall on that? I can't hate on the guys that are getting paid for playing these songs. And, they don't need to know how to DJ because the software allows them to do different things. There's guys that are playing mix CDs and just put it on hit play and put their hands up in the air. Whatever. I mean, the crowd is coming there for an experience, and they're getting that experience. More power to them. As a DJ, do I respect that? No, because I respect the craft of DJing. I understand what it takes to blend two records together and have that skill to be able to do that, or to take a crowd on a journey. To have, whether you're playing for 50 people or 500 people or 1,000 people, to take them on a journey with you where they're experiencing the music and getting some more of a spiritual connection to the other people in the room, including the DJ, where now you've created this space where magic can happen, But, you'll hear people in the EDM world saying the same thing, that magic happens when, 50,000 people are cheering to some song. I respect it, and it's not my world, but I'm not going to hate on it. Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, some of those tracks are wax. I mean, just some deep house tracks, like, this come on now. But some of them, they really get the crowd going. Some of the stuff is really good, Right. mean, you can hit. I love Diplo. This is crazy. I mean,
Right.
if it wasn't for Diplo, I wouldn't have gotten into Kuduro and a lot of other stuff that I'm into now, like African hip hop. And this kid, he didn't have to go out to like
Right.
Luanda to interview these kids. No, he didn't have to, but he did it because he respected the music. So I got to give him props for that.
Right.
Is there any trickle down as a label owner, as a DJ? Is the popularity of EDM? Is there a trickle down onto what you're doing at all?
Yeah, probably. I would say so. Maybe not consciously. I would say, like you said, there's really good music that comes out of that scene, and you hear things and you go, oh, that's clever, or that I like that sound, or I see how that works. And whether consciously or not, that may trickle into something that you're creating in your world, because you're constantly, grabbing from experience, all your senses, and channeling that into your work. So I wouldn't deny that.
Sometimes that makes the best music. I mean, you look at Dennis Ferrer. When he started experimenting more like the tech house, and they're like, "What are you doing? You can't be doing that." And now it's like, whoa! Everybody's like, "Yo, he's the man. He is the man." Because the stuff is good, whether you're into tech house or deep house or EDM, whatever. It's, like you said, there's little influence of everything. You take the best out of everything and you create your own sound.
Exactly.
It's really important. You were the first guy I know that popularized the South African or African house sound, which is, I guess I'll have you describe it. You're the expert. But how did that come about? And now it's huge. Now it's like everybody knows about the sound, and it's crazy how it's exploded.
Yeah.
And you were the first guy.
I don't know. Well, first of all, thank you, but I don't think I was the first guy. As far as I don't know. I just I don't know how it came about that I got so involved with it. I think what sucked me in, because there's been guys years before me that have been going to South Africa. You mentioned Dennis and other cats that have
Louis too.
Yeah, that have pulled things from that sound into their music. I think I probably was one of the first guys to like really stand up and say, this is great, and these songs are great. I got sucked into it because the culture down there and their passion for house music reminded me of what it was like here in the 70s and early 80s when hip-hop was just coming to fruition. The passion that all of us had as young kids, like to create hip-hop by any means necessary. How can we get into the studio and make a track? Like, that was my passion, and the kids around me. Not just the making the music, but writing, and dancing and everything that involved this culture that we were creating that was ours. I feel that similar vibe from these kids in South Africa. They're like really hungry and passionate about the music. It's like they feel like that's their life, and by any means necessary, they're going to go listen to it. They're going to go create it. They're going to go dance to it. And that just sucked me in like 100%. And I'm just super passionate about supporting the music that comes out of there.
And one of the things also is the way they make it happen. I mean, here we're in the U.S. where a lot of people have laptops, a lot of people have access to studios, et cetera, et cetera. A lot of this music is created out in Africa is made on like a PC from like 1990.
That's what I'm saying.
Loops.
They don't care. They're gonna make it,
and it sounds better than this stuff that's coming out here.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, I mean, so there's obviously an evolution that's happening with what they're doing musically. It's some of it. There's some knocks on it because some of it's simplistic and there's not a lot of melodic things happening and music and chord changes and things like that. That's all coming, and it gets better and better each time I hear it. And I'm hearing the EDM influences and some of the work that these guys are doing. I love it. I'm super passionate about it.